Welcome to the Mindset RX podcast. My name is Tom Foxley and I help functional athletes gain a champ's mindset. Today's show is something that I've been talking about in some podcasts that I've been interviewed on recently, namely the Alpha Hippie podcast, which is a really, really good podcast actually, hosted by Angelo Cisco. And it was a fantastic podcast just because of the questions that he answered. But it's a subject that I've kind of believed before and I've thought about before, and I've definitely mentioned it to athletes that I've worked with, and I've definitely mentioned it in workshops and seminars, but it's something that until really questioned about, I hadn't formulated many kind of, or a solid opinion on it. So to kind of hear it come out was something that I really enjoyed hearing, because it was like, that makes sense for what I've been talking about for so long. It puts into perspective why I love physical training so much, and a bunch of other stuff. So this is the concept of, let me digest the exact phrase first, or let me say the exact phrase first, which is that training is a metaphor for life and life is a metaphor for training. And what I mean by that is the worst of us and the best of us comes out under physical duress. So if we are, if the intensity is increased in our day-to-day life, then usually the best of us and the worst of us can come out of that. But most of our life is, to be honest, predictable. We know roughly what we're going to be doing for 95% of the time, and anything that is incredibly intense, whether that's positive or negative, is a rarity, and we don't have the chance to kind of, in a almost like dry run type basis, we don't have the basis, or we don't have the means to go through an example like that. We don't have the means to become a kind of, or to see ourselves in that light. But every time we step under a barbell, every time we pick up a kettlebell, or every time we walk into the gym, we know there's going to be intensity there. And what this intensity does is it forces us to adapt in the only way that we know possible. And that is either by kind of reducing the stories in our head and just adapting and just going through the process that's most appropriate, taking the most appropriate action and doing what's right in that moment, or it's defaulting to the coping mechanisms that we've used before. These coping mechanisms could be, for example, if you're someone that gives up easily in life in general, you'll give up easily in training. If you're someone that gets overwhelmed and stressed, you'll get overwhelmed and stressed when you begin the intensity of training. And if you're someone that thrives under pressure, someone that's completely in tune with their psychology and their biology, then you'll thrive in the gym too. And the temptation here is to see these kind of roles that we play and see the worst of us, as I kind of put it, and hate it, and to kind of loathe it, and to think, I hate it when I'm this type of person. I hate it when I don't push hard enough. I hate it when the workout kind of gets the best of me. I hate it when I can't get my skills. I hate it when I get frustrated, and we push it away, and we stop seeing that the training is teaching us a lesson, that if we apply it and that we take action towards it, it changes the rest of our lives. So, like, a really good example of this, and actually I'm going to be completely open and honest here. I've always wondered why I've spun my wheels a bit. Like, to be completely honest and open with you, I've tried to achieve lots of things in my life and always achieved 70% of them or 60% of them, or I've gone very a long way along this, or a long way along the process, and always got to a point where I couldn't quite get any more, and I would begin to hold back from being truly open in terms of working out, or this is a great example, or seeking negative feedback. I talk about seeking negative feedback a lot, and I think it's very important, but there would be times when I'd fear negative feedback. And whilst I'm a very capable athlete, and whilst I have a great grasp on my mindset, it was only yesterday when I realized just what an impact I'd created, and just what kind of a mindset that I'd created, and it's a strange one, because like I'll go into the full depth of this for you, just because I think it's helpful for you to see, not just because I like talking about myself. But is an amazing kind of what I call an ego role, like a kind of a role that we as human beings play in order to like cope. It's the coping mechanism that I was talking about before, because this ego role, this coping mechanism, for so long served me. It meant that I could fight through any discomfort. It meant that I would achieve certain things. Like I put this down to, or put becoming a Royal Marines Commando almost entirely down to this purpose, or this kind of ego role. I put down a lot of my achievements and a kind of a mental toughness that I built up, and also starting the business. I think that's there as well. But I realized that this ego role as well, it meant that I could only ever go so far, that it was a layer just in front of me. And I'm still realizing it now, which is why it's a bit kind of unclear in my mind as to how I actually describe this to you. But it's this, I've kind of like, in various areas, hit a bit of a glass ceiling. Like I can't quite push through. And whilst things are progressing, I've wondered why they're not progressing as quickly as they could be, and why I will continue, just like you guys, to self-sabotage in certain areas. And the reason why is, if we go way back to when I was training, when I was like going through all my palpitations, becoming bullied or something, and stuff like that, I had the shit kicked out on me on a daily basis, in a horrible way. Like I'd turn up to school and like a lot of kids actually, I would be bullied and beaten most days. And what I had to do because of this, because I didn't have the kind of the resources to cope as I'd like to, is I developed this defensive mechanism. I developed an essential shell. I developed a suit of armor that protected me, and it would be the kind of the non-emotional side of things. It would be the it wouldn't allow me to connect with other human beings. It wouldn't allow me to, most importantly, connect with other people. But you can see how in a work, like in a kind of training session or a workout, or becoming a Royal Marines Commando, for example, this could be a very helpful strategy, because I was able to compartmentalize the discomfort. But this only got me to a certain level. I could never push through this level because, well, I wasn't willing to be vulnerable. And if anyone saw my post about vulnerability yesterday, that was a big piece of this. Like the vulnerability, and that was on Instagram, by the way, and Facebook, but mostly Instagram kind of picked it up. But this level of vulnerability is something that I needed to become aware of, to see that by becoming vulnerable, it was actually becoming a strength. And let me just take you through what I call the ego role. Now, I've named this and I've kind of separated myself from it, and I've realized, most importantly, and hopefully you guys can realize this about your own behavior that doesn't serve you as well, that the behavior you've chosen to use is not who you fundamentally are. It's something you've picked up as a result of influence. In this case, my experiential influence of having the shit kicked out of me, my environmental influence of how my parents kind of implicitly, and the school implicitly implied I deal with it, and my friends as well, the educational influence of like, you shouldn't be, like, just ignore it, or just stay away from it, or like just blank it out, whatever that is. And then finally the evolutionary influence as well of, okay, like, this is a negative event, you've got to hold this in high regards, because evolution places a high bias on negative events. So I've got all of these things that have created this story, this belief about how the world is, and how I've got to act in order to change the world. Change myself, sorry. But what I've realized, and what you have to realize here, is these beliefs are not who you are. These stories are not who you are. They're just simply coping mechanisms that you've picked up. And we have to recognize that this isn't a fundamental part of this. This isn't who we are. It's a behavior that we've picked up. So the way this relates to training is that sometimes when I'm, for example, at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, practicing that, I will find that I'll be unwilling to try something new because it may make me look stupid. I'll be unwilling to ask for help because I want to keep up this appearance that I'm the best, or that I'm growing faster than anyone else and I don't need help because I'm the mindset guy and I'm the athletic guy there and all that kind of stuff. And then let's just like the ramifications in speaking to you guys, for example. I think this is probably the first time I've really spoken about something that's happening in my own life and the way that I'm trying to deal with it, and hopefully this can help you. But I've never done that before, and I've known that I've needed to, but I've never done it before. Like it's obvious how it could work in relationships as well, in friendships and relationships, and in kind of the way I conduct my business as a whole, and as well as that. So there's all these ways, and that I have been separating myself from the outcome, or separating from myself from the desired outcome, I should say. And this is something that we all do to certain degrees with the stories we tell ourselves, the kind of perceptions and the beliefs we hold about the world, our Weltanschauung, like our worldview, is the thing that's going to entirely dictate our behaviors. And this is where generally we go wrong as humans. We try and change the outcome without changing the reason why we behave the way we do, which is our beliefs. So this has only come about through repeated exposure to my own thoughts and my own emotions and my own behaviors, my own physical symptoms too. And then instead of pushing them away, instead of resisting them, instead of forcing them somewhere else, accepting them and thinking, okay, this is fine. I'm happy with this because it's showing me the way. So this discomfort of training, I've realized, has brought about the awareness needed to move past my next level, not only in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and training as an athlete and all the kind of and big mountain skiing and all that kind of stuff, but as a kind of a way that I can improve in life too, in the rest of my life. So I hope this kind of this openness has touched a chord with you, and is something that you will find helpful. And this is the process that I'm going through in the Mindset for Functional Athletes group at the moment. So if you get on Facebook and search for Mindset for Functional Athletes, I'm taking everyone through a very similar process to what I've been in, obviously a much more structured way. So definitely getting over there. But from here, like this is how I'm going to approach it, and how I suggest you approach it too. Continue journaling about it is number one. Continue staying like aware, adding more detail to it. Like I've named this because when we name something, it separates us from it. Like it reduces how much we own it, and it also trivializes it. So it separates it from who we believe we are, and it also trivializes it. I've named it as Ian the Invincible, and Ian the Invincible is like kind of the character I say I'm playing when I get to this point, and when I'm like behaving behaving the ways that I don't think I should behave. And I imagine it like a skinny, scared man inside a big old suit of armor, thinking that the armor will protect himself. And the reason I'm saying this is because when I act in a way that I now know is non-ideal, when Ian the Invincible comes up, I can just say, oh, that's just Ian. That's not me. That's not fundamentally who I am. And I've been playing this for so long now. I've been playing this with such intensity for the last couple of days now. I've been kind of watching out for Ian, and I've realized that, well, I've not even realized, I know this. It's just amazing to see it in action for myself again, because I haven't been through a phase like this for a long time, a phase of growth like this, personal growth anyway, for a long time. That when I become aware of the ego role, when I become aware of how this role is being played out in my life and how I'm choosing to play it, then it dissipates in its awareness. And this podcast is really a significant time for me, because it's me saying, look, I'm choosing now to no longer let Ian the Invincible rule my life and to rule who I am. So my advice from this is to pay attention to your ego roles, to pay attention to the language that you use, the emotions that come up, and realize they're not you. Fundamentally, you are the person that you want to be. You're the person that is the best of you, and that's your default setting. Everything else around this has just been put onto you by influence and created beliefs. And when we reduce ourselves, when we remove ourselves from the influence that we hold and the beliefs that we tell ourselves and the stories that we tell ourselves, then we return to our default setting, which is achieving everything you want and being the human being that you want to be. As I was saying, if you want to go through this process, it's all in the Facebook group, Mindset for Functional Athletes. So you can head to Facebook, search for that. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a 5-star review. I'd love to kind of see even more 5-star reviews popping up, because I think we're at 55 5-star reviews on the UK site anyway, and that makes me happy. So if you enjoyed the show, let me know. I'd love to hear from you, or follow me on the socials which is at Tom Foxley on Instagram, FOXLEY. You can find my personal profile on Facebook as well, which I know Mr. Zuckerberg won't be pleased with me using, but I do kind of talk about Mindset RX and the way that's growing and give advice through there. So find out about all that kind of stuff, and I'll speak to you very soon.